unusual time to be having this event, but that doesn't mean that we don't want to plan ahead for life after graduation and life after this pandemic is over. So we have people here from the med school, the vet school, and advising for health professions, and Dr. Lee from the graduate schools. So that pretty much is a wide gamut of things that you can do after you finish your undergraduate education at Virginia Tech. But I bet people will be willing to speak to opportunities elsewhere too. And so I might as well also mention I'm an assistant professor in fish and wildlife conservation. So my name is Holly Kindsvater, and so that means I'm in the College of Natural Resources and the Environment, which is much smaller than, for example, the medical school. But I can also ask any questions you have about careers in wildlife and fish conservation. So, but I'm primarily here to moderate, so why don't we get started, and each of our panelists can introduce themselves and also sort of clarify what their role is at their entity. So Dr. Lee, you're our leader, do you want to start?
Sure, I get started. My name is Shernita Lee. I'm Assistant Dean and Director for the Office of Recruitment, Diversity, and Inclusion. My role is kind of student support through finding them, hopefully they choose Virginia Tech for grad school, and then once here, doing different retention efforts to try to make sure they complete their degree successfully at the institution. So.
Great, okay, so let's see, I have over here Dr. Pursakowski. Do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Melani Pursakowski. I'm a pediatric emergency physician, and I'm the Associate Dean for Admissions at your medical school, Virginia Tech Carilion School of Medicine. So I kind of wear two hats. Our school really believes in academic medicine, so I'm kind of a good example of one way you can make academic medicine happen. I work clinically most of my time, and about 2 days a week, I run the Department of Admissions, looking through all the applications that we get every year for people who are interested in medical school nearby.
Okay, great. So Ms. Jenkins, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Shelby Jenkins. I'm the admissions coordinator at the Virginia Maryland College of Veterinary Medicine. We are located at Virginia Tech. It's a weird name, but we are at Virginia Tech. And so I do everything from recruitment to advising to application reviews. I do a lot with the application, making sure students can have everything they need, or if they have questions about that. I schedule our interviews and do all of that fun stuff. So many hats that I wear.
Okay, great. And finally, Ms. Robinson.
So welcome everyone. I'm Carol Robinson. I'm the Director of Health Professions Advising here at Virginia Tech. And we also have another advisor in our office, Annie Labe Jenkins, and she used to work over in the College of Neuroscience as an advisor and is now over with Health Professions Advising. And so we advise students for any health profession. So all of the ones we've mentioned: veterinary medicine, physician, dentistry, physical therapy, anything that would require a graduate education. And we work with students that aren't yet decided, so they may not yet know what particular profession they're interested in, but they know something in health. And also we work very closely with students that know what they want. They're now going to be in the application process. And so, and we work with both current students at Virginia Tech, and we work with alumni as well. And we can answer questions about that, but our office is at Virginia Tech, and we can advise you. We're doing this with everybody else. We're doing everything virtually at the moment, and doing very well with that. We're finding our students may have a little extra time on their hands right now since they're not running back and forth. So that's been helpful. So good to see everybody here.
Okay, so I'm just going to go in that order. That's the order of my windows and around the clock on my little screen. So And so I have a few guideline questions for each of you, but then we definitely have time to open it up, and hopefully the students who are here can ask their burning questions too. So, okay, so Dr. Lee, do you want to tell us what is the most frequent question you receive from a prospective student considering graduate school?
Okay, well, yes, everyone else, I'm sure, you receive a lot of questions. But I think the most common one is usually what is the selection criteria? And how does it vary across the different programs? So it's kind of almost, the students want to know, and I hate to say it, but am I good enough? Would I be selected? Would I make it to the next stage? So it's kind of providing support and hopefully boosting their confidence to say, you won't ever know the answer to that unless you apply, right? And then the worst thing you hear is no. So usually it's around that context of, I don't know if I should apply because I may not get accepted, which the two, have to work together. So that's my most frequent question I receive.
Okay, great. Dr. Pursakowski?
So I agree with Dr. Lee. Most of the questions that I field are people who are asking about their personal either stumble with academics or issue that they had to overcome, and they're asking, am I somebody that you think might get in? And so very much like the graduate school and the vet school, and you guys have an amazing set of resources at Virginia Tech with Ms. Robinson and her department. There are a number of different ways to really look at what you have achieved and how you've spent your time, and look to see where you fit in and whether or not you are looking competitive compared to people who were accepted into different medical schools the year before. And there are a number, we can get down into the nitty gritty about that, but I also very much agree with Dr. Lee that while it is a somewhat onerous process to apply to medical school, if it really is your passion, then there are lots of resources at your disposal as a tech undergraduate to help, or recent graduate, to help you find your way.
Okay, great. Ms. Jenkins?
I have a few, if you don't mind me having more than one. I get this same type of question a lot. Everybody's, they send their stats, and you kind of have to tell them, the process and everything. But so I get a lot of those. First, we get some really specific questions like, do you accept the GRE, which we do not require any kind of standardized test, but we know other schools do. And then I get a lot of questions about where are you guys located, since we're at the Virginia Maryland College, and we're unique because Virginia and Maryland residents are both considered in-state, but we are physically at Virginia Tech, and so I get that question a lot, which is kind of a weird question, but kind of unique to me. But that's yeah. But along the same lines as what the other two said, I get a lot of questions like that in various formats, like, what do I need to do to be accepted? Or, here's my life story. Can you tell me if I would be, accepted? So, but yeah, so along the same lines as them.
Okay, so that's fun to hear all of that. And I guess for me, most of my answers are going to come from a slightly different angle since I don't have a program to promote. So we're advising students for how to get into all of these programs. And I think that everybody will smile at my response. But the question that we actually get most frequently is one that I both can't answer and really don't answer. And that is, what are your statistics for people getting into X school, School of Medicine, veterinary school? So how many of your students go on to these programs? What's your admission rate? And so my short answer really to that is, even if I could give you a number, it's not likely to be that helpful for you. So everybody wants to know what's the percentage, but it's not a percentage type of issue. So because with all of these programs, there's a process I think that most everybody's doing, if not everybody, called holistic review. And so with the holistic review, they're going to look at your application and take your own story into consideration. So I tell people the focus really in the application process and as you're preparing should be, go be a fascinating person. That's your job. And you all tend to forget the other half of that is you already are a fascinating person. I think everybody here can say they've heard all sorts of wonderful stories. They meet wonderful applicants. And so I think for you to feel you're a successful applicant in the process is, did you represent yourself well? And do you feel like at the end of your application materials, when you've submitted them in writing, and then when you go to your interview, do you feel that you've represented yourself well so that school and that admissions person understands who you are, and also, very importantly, why you would be a good fit both with their program and with this particular profession? Why is this going to be why are you going to be an excellent professional in the future? So, and then the bottom line is our students get into programs at the same rate as students from other schools. And so it really depends on your background and your everything that you bring together as an applicant. And so our office can work with you. If you're not sure what those areas are and what makes you unique, we can certainly work with you to help you understand that and put some language around it.
Yeah, I mean, so you just did a wonderful job actually answering my next question, which is about advice for students who are considering applying to one of these programs. So I understand that's your specialty.
Okay, good. 2 with 1. I like that. Yay.
So Dr. Lee, do you want to hand out a piece of advice as well?
Hard to pick one piece of advice. Okay.
Yeah.
I would say be willing to step outside of your comfort zone. I feel like, so it depends on what kind of advice you receive as an undergraduate student, but sometimes things don't necessarily have to be logical, or to say, my bachelor's training only makes me eligible to do a certain thing in graduate school. I think be willing to explore something different. I did that. I started as a mathematician, went to computational biologist, and now administrator. So just be willing to learn a new skill, and really think about how that foundational education you received so far can be useful to apply to a different field. So be willing to explore.
Yeah, so I'm going to just jump in here since I also sort of represent the graduate school and just say there's no recipe. And that's what I tell my students over and over is there's not a formula, and don't feel like you have to fit into someone's formula, because you can you can take chances and explore and find your passion and where that sort of overlaps with your objective. Okay, and now I'm going to ask, I'm sure that our panelists from the med school and the med school might have slightly different advice. So Dr. Pursakowski, do you want to share?
Well, first I just want to reiterate that those are great pieces of advice there. If there's anything that's really pushing the future of medicine, and I think health professions in every way, it's this idea that there's not one best kind of doctor or best kind of nurse or best kind of physician assistant or vet. We need people who can care for all people. And so that advice about pushing the envelope to find your passion and being proud of what makes you unique, those are two really integral pieces of having a successful application that stands out among a lot of other people who kind of think that, you know, medicine might be cool, or who kind of think that I did biology, so I thought I'd become a doctor or whatever. It really is about all the different things that you did. And so I think my piece of advice would be get involved, because we're looking, and I think professional schools in general are looking for people who are multidimensional, because you're going to take care of multidimensional people. Sometimes you will connect with your patients in a way that comes directly from, I know this science and I can solve your problem. But sometimes you connect because of your faith or because of a prior experience or a way you grew up or a passion that you have for serving others. And so if you're sorority or singing in your church or working as an Eagle Scout or being part of a Bagram dancing team, if those were important to you and you think they contribute to who you are, then write about them passionately in your application.
Okay. Yeah. No,
I
please,
kind of to go off of that, similar, a lot of applicants think we're just interested in their veterinary and their animal experience, which is obviously important to have those experiences, but really we like to see applicants that have been involved in more things, whether that is Greek life or, volunteering or anything completely opposite of animals or veterinary medicine. We like to see that because that shows you, a well-rounded person and a well-rounded applicant. And something I always like to tell people as well is there's nothing too personal, at least for us on the application. A lot of people, one of our essay questions asks about resiliency because it's an important trait to have really in life, but, in particular in the veterinary profession. And some applicants are really kind of hesitant to share personal stories and, especially if they display resiliency. And so I always tell applicants, don't think that anything's too personal. Don't think you're making an excuse if you're writing about something that was traumatic or whatever. We do have holistic admissions, so we do take everything into consideration. And kind of a different track with that is I always tell students to try to be involved in things where they're going to be communicating with people and having potentially even leadership roles, because a lot of people don't realize that veterinary medicine is working with people more so than animals. And so, they're like, I love animals, but I don't like people. I'm like, maybe this isn't the right profession for you, because every animal has a person attached to it in some way. And so I think it's changing a little bit now. When I first started in admissions, you got a lot of people that weren't very good at communicating. They were very shy. Our interviews are very much in your face. You got to communicate. And so I always try to recommend, if somebody doesn't have that experience, prior to getting to the application point, try to get to that, whether that's a public speaking class or just being more involved in a club where they have a leadership role so that they can get those communication skills.
Yeah, those are good tips. Okay. So Ms. Robinson, you already shared your advice, but you're welcome to share another piece.
Well, I would just say another piece to all of this is go and get, so get whatever experiences get you energized. I heard Dr. Pursakowski say what you're passionate about. I heard Shelby Jenkins talk about what is it in communicating with others, and Dr. Lee saying the same thing. So all of your experiences you can use to talk about these different aspects of your application. So I guess my advice would be you want to be a well-rounded applicant. And in addition to that, I always have conversations with people of, well, I always really wanted to go do this one thing, but it doesn't seem to fit. It fits for your life, so go lead your life and do those things. And then you've got to take some time to reflect. So I guess my advice to that would also be take some time to reflect in that application process, and you don't necessarily need to rush through and be applying this 1 year because you don't want to lose any time between the application cycles. But take some time to reflect. And again, I think with everyone here, they're also mentors to people. So you can choose to find people in your circle that will help you just as mentors about how you think about how you interact with others.
Yes, so I was just thinking how important mentors have been for me, and that I have a job now in a field that I didn't even know existed until I was about ready to finish my undergraduate degree. So obviously I'm a professor of fisheries management and conservation. If you had asked me, when I started college, if I knew what that was. What is a fishery, you know? So, but I had a mentor who shared that with me, and, you know, he was able to sort of show me the reasons to keep going and to make that over, because I had a passion for marine ecology. I found a way to sort of, you know, build that into a career. And so that sort of is a segue sort of into my next question, which is, what are the benefits and challenges that you see of pursuing an education beyond the undergraduate in your area? Okay, Dr. Lee. Represent kind of a broad area.
Yes, I think it's several benefits, but I guess it's twofold. I think it's making sure that if you are going to decide to pursue grad school, to kind of be all in. I think because of the structure of graduate school, especially if it's research-based, you're going to spend a lot of time, energy, training, taking a lot of different courses. So I think you need to be certain that that's a process that you want to pursue. There are ways to accommodate if you decide to take a break and things happen, but I do say it is more challenging if you are more uncertain if that is the step for you.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, having a graduate degree or any professional degree, I would say, for everyone on here, right, is useful. It's also more important from the networking and how you use that degree. So beneficial across the board.
Right. So if I can just jump in again, because I feel like one of the benefits that separate a degree from the graduate school, especially in STEM, from the professional degrees, is that in STEM, you actually can get paid to go to graduate school. So you work as a TA or you get graduate research assistantships. And so it can be a much more cost neutral. I wouldn't say you're going to make a lot of money in graduate school, but if you're thrifty, you can break even. And so the economic pluses and minuses are something. Obviously, you're not going to make as much money, perhaps, when you finish as my friend who's an anesthesiologist does, but he also faced significantly more expense associated with his education in anesthesiology. So. Okay, so yeah, again, I'm interjecting. Dr. Pursakowski, do you want to talk about the challenges and benefits?
Sure. So actually, that was that was my con also, was that there is a significant financial investment in your education if you choose to go to medical school. And then I think most people understand that once you complete your 4 years of medical school, you also have to do a residency training to become board certified in your field. So that's additional years of training. Those years you are paid, but you're not paid at a full doctor salary. And so you have a lot of deferred years of earning. The other downside is that medicine is a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, including holidays kind of field in a lot of fields of medicine. And so that has to be something that you're prepared for. Now, the good side list is almost too long to mention, but the truth is, it is an incredible career to get to spend your life caring for others, being let into people's inner circles with their worries and their concerns, and being able to play a really fundamental role in allaying some of those. And even when you have your saddest moments and you lose a patient or you're with someone who's losing a family member, there's so much healing that you can help engender. So it's a privilege. And for those of you who feel that calling to help people in any one of these health associated fields, it is incredibly rewarding. You never have to dread going to work because you're going to do something important every day.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I am not a veterinarian, so I can't speak to being a veterinarian, but I mean, I think kind of along the same lines, the debt of going to veterinary school is probably the biggest, negative. And I think a lot of people are aware of what that is before they apply and are, a lot of them research veterinary school for a long time. So at least hopefully they do, and they research the, you know, debt to income ratio and all that. And it's a big thing in the veterinary profession now, and they have a lot of literature and all that out there about that. And just if somebody is, you know, up to speed on everything, I think it's definitely something that's manageable. It's just, you know, out of state, in state, all that is, you know, if you don't have a vet school, there's not a vet school in every state, unlike other health professions. And so a lot of students have to be out of state, and so therefore they have a lot of debt. But that's probably the negative. And from what I've heard from alumni and those that I work with that are veterinarians, there are a lot of positives as well. You know, you do get to work with animals, which is a plus. At least I think so. And, you know, you get to work with people, and then just, I think the enjoyment of working with people and helping them care for their pets. And you know, there are downsides, obviously, you know, animals pass away or get really sick and things like that. But yeah, I think very similar to the medical profession. We don't have residency and internship afterwards, but there are students that still do that. So kind of the same thing. They go on and they do that for a couple of years if they want to specialize, and they get paid very minimal, but they do get paid for those years. But yeah, so those are my pluses and minuses, I guess.
Ms. Robinson, what do you think?
Okay, so yes, so again, coming from a slightly different angle with this, I think one of the things that everybody has talked about, and that I see is difficult for our students, is because you're entering professions in which you're going to be doing extensive education before you're going to be able to practice. It's sometimes hard for people to know and say, wow, would I really want to be this veterinarian? Do I really want to be a college professor? Do I really want to be a physician or an occupational therapist or anything such as that? So in getting a graduate education, one of the biggest challenges, since you can't be that kind of a job yet before you get your certification, is how do you sort of approximate that? And for many people, that is a little bit of a challenge. And so again, find ways to pair up with people. So it might be that if you wanted to think about being a college professor, you could talk with one of your professors, and maybe they would, even as an undergraduate, they might let you lead a class. There's other opportunities where you might be able to do some teaching of maybe a small group. And certainly if you're looking at a health profession, there's lots of ways to be involved where you can be working directly with people and not necessarily you certainly could be a health professional as maybe a certified nursing assistant. We certainly have students that are dental assistants before they end up going to dental school. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of ways you can be involved in that environment. Dr. Pursakowski works in an emergency type environment. You could certainly do that both as an emergency room scribe, but also we have lots of students that are involved in EMT work. I have a lot of students that come in that have been involved in EMT work in high school, and now they're going to do that in college. So there's lots of ways where you can approximate that that environment where you can get some experience with the population, but also talk with professionals that are doing this kind of work. And so that needs to be part of your plan. So I would say I would encourage people, if you're not sure what you want to do try to do some exploration ahead of time. The nice thing about any kind of a health profession, if you're interested in that for graduate school, is that you can get the same kind of background education-wise. It doesn't matter what you major in. So you can get any education as long as you get those prerequisite courses. In the same way, just for a graduate level program as well, you will need, with the graduate level program, that's Dr. Lee's point, is you'll need to make a choice at some point to say, yes, I am interested in this. But definitely try to do some of that exploration. You're not going to be exactly sure what the end result would be, like Holly's talking about, is okay, I ended up in this place. And that's what happened when I went to graduate school. I went to graduate school headed in one direction, and I left in completely the opposite direction. So it's all fine. It worked out well. So so those are some of the things to be aware of, is just start exploring that. Yes.
And I would say that doing that is a great way to meet reference writers. So if I have a student who's come to my lab meetings, or even a pre-med student or a pre-vet, and that student has worked with me outside of the classroom, and they have shown that they're interested, and I can get a sense of them as a more rounded person than just their performance. I teach large courses, so just their grade at the end of the semester. That enables me to write a much stronger letter that sort of speaks to their, their strengths outside of just their academic performance, which is, as everyone has said, we're in a model now where we do holistic admissions, and letters of reference are really important. So it can help you figure out, is this the thing that is my passion? But it can also help you find those key reference writers. So I want to open it up to questions from our audience, just because I think, we could just talk and talk, but now is a good time to write things in the chat, or even if you want to unmute and speak, it would be totally fine. This is a different format of Zoom webinar. Oh, it's a webinar, not a meeting. Oh, crafty. Okay. But yeah, by all means, we have more questions we can draw from, but I would love to make sure that our audience is getting what they need to from us. So
I think, yeah, so I think they may just have to, they can ask questions in the chat.
Okay, yeah.
To do that, yes.
Great.
Can I add something to your letter writer
Yes.
comment, please? So one of the really important reasons it's good to know the people who write your letters and make sure that they know you well is that I'm rarely dazzled by somebody's credentials. What I want to see in a letter is someone who knows you well. And it's particularly important if you feel like there's something that you want to explain, something that you feel you didn't do well and you've moved beyond it. You learned to study better. You had a new approach to your academics, or maybe you got in trouble on campus and you have some sort of institutional action, and now you've participated in ways where you've shown leadership or integrity, and you have someone who can write and verify the story that I hope you tell me about it somewhere in your application. So there is a very sophisticated way, and again, your Office of Health Professions Advising, I think, has really good advice and resources for this. But there is a sophisticated way to ask somebody to write a letter that addresses, I'm really hoping you can speak about how the role I played in your lab and how I was able to work independently, or I'm asking you in particular because I'm very proud of how I did in your upper level science class, and I had trouble with some of my first or second year science classes, and you can give them the opportunity to write the letter that helps you the most.
Yeah, that's great advice. Okay, so we have a question from Eleanor. It says, Ms. Robinson mentioned majors and courses, but I was wondering if choosing a major shows a greater level of purpose than is appreciated by admissions, or if by choosing a biology major and taking classes beyond the prereqs puts a student above an English major, for instance.
Okay. Well, and Dr. Pursakowski and I might have two slightly different answers for this, but I think in general, what we see in the application process for applicants in general is it really truly does not matter what major you choose. And so, and I see Melani nodding. Okay. So, and what we mean by that is if you choose to be, for instance, an English major or a history major, then you're certainly going to want to have the basic sciences, and you can take some additional coursework above that. But you definitely are going to have, you're going to have an analytical viewpoint that is just coming from a different angle. You'll be able to analyze, but it might be more written information, or you'll be able to, you might have a broader background in literature, and so you may relate to a wider range of people for that reason. And then certainly we have many of our students do choose to major in a science, and then you need to do well in whatever major you choose. But if you major in a science and all you do is just major in that biology, but you don't stretch and go beyond that, or you don't have particular areas of interest that you're pursuing, then it's difficult for you to demonstrate to that admissions committee that you have a broader range of interests and people and that kind of thing. But certainly if you're a biology major and you started working at the hospital as a volunteer when you were in high school, and then throughout college you worked as, say, a pharmacy technician, and you've worked with the public quite a bit, and then you also have done some volunteer work where you've worked with the Boys and Girls Club every Wednesday, and you've mentored 3 different children over 3 different years. Those are some things that would be really of interest to that committee. So it's always, you're going to start with a major, but you're going to branch out from there and be a person that it has a wider range of areas in which you want to grow and explore. So either one would be okay. You're going to have different ways that you bring that background forward to be an applicant that is going to stand out in the process. So I'll throw that back over to Dr. Pursakowski.
Yes, I agree. I think what's important is that your entire application shows, if you're applying to medical school, a passion for medicine, and that you've put effort into becoming a well-rounded applicant who understands what you're getting into. So you can major in anything. You do have to take certain prerequisites to qualify for medical school. And if you are someone who has a passion for literature or music or something that is not a science, then you have to do very well in those prerequisites also. But by the same token, if you're a biology major or a physics major, you have to be able to take upper level science classes, and it's not enough just to do well in the prerequisites if then you show me that you can't do well in upper level, graduate level science courses. So either one of them can be a risk, but what Ms. Robinson said, and is so important, is that it's really everything you've done all put together, the way you spent your time, not just the grades that you got. And I'm going to use this as an opportunity to say, when you are in those science prerequisite classes or in upper level science classes, because that's your major, don't just learn the information to do well on the test in a couple of weeks. You are going to need all of that information lots and lots of times. So learn it to know it and be able to employ it in life.
Yeah, and the only other thing I would add to that is also, if you're looking to do something in a graduate program for research, such as that Dr. Lee's talking about or Dr. Kindsvater is talking about, then that's also, you're going to then be in that subject matter. So that's a little bit different. You're going to study that particular subject matter. But again, if you don't get started in that right away, there's ways that you could move into a master's graduate level program that might even be different than what you studied. So let's say you might have been an English major to start out with, you were interested in that, but became interested in fisheries later on. There may be some coursework that you could take that at least demonstrates that interest, and then you could move into a graduate program. And that happens a lot with, say, biomedical engineering for a lot of our students and that kind of thing, because they may have a major in a whole nother subject. But that really, when you move beyond the bachelor's level into the master's and then a PhD or doctoral level, that's when you're specializing, so to speak. And so you actually could come to that graduate level with a variety of backgrounds.
Yeah, I agree. There's no recipe there. So actually we have another question that's a little bit on that same vein. So Gabby says, hi, I'm coming up on my second year. Okay, so that's great. You're still early on, but you're graduating early, hopefully. Okay, due to the pandemic, there's not as many options for internships and opportunities. That is true. You're really interested in grad school, specifically counseling, and your communication science with minors in psych and sociology. You're not in a traditional major for graduate study in counseling. So what's the best way to truly express yourself in an application when you have such a short time remaining? I sort of paraphrased your question. Yeah. So who wants to take this one?
Well, I might start with that. And so, Gabby, you're welcome to come in and talk with me. My actual background, so I started out like Dr. Lee. I was a math and psychology major. I was a math major undergraduate. Then worked as a bank manager for 10 years. And did IT management, and then went to graduate school and got my master's in counseling degree from Wake Forest with the intention of doing supervisory training, and fell in love with doing family therapy. Who knew? So I became a family therapist, worked inpatient psychiatric work during my internship, and then worked with families of folks that were very, very ill. I worked on the intensive unit for a number of years, inpatient. So I was part of the team that treated people and then worked with their families as well. And then got back to doing career work, and I've been at Virginia Tech about 20 years. So there we go. I'm on like my third or fourth career at this point. So again, with counseling, as with other areas, they're looking for a broad range of backgrounds from people. And so so you can't, one of the things that's really difficult, I think, with counseling or doing, a lot of my students who would be interested in counseling are working with what we call a clinical population, so people that would be working with illness. So that is hard to do. One of the wonderful things in this area we have is something called the RAFT Crisis Helpline, and they actually train volunteers to answer that crisis helpline. And that's a wonderful way if you want to work with a population of people. And again, maybe Dr. Pursakowski can talk to this, but I think within the emergency room setting at general hospitals, they work with a population that does have some mental illness. And so having a background in that and trying to de-escalate issues is a great skill you can start building now. So think about it from a skill set perspective, rather than saying, I need to be working in a hospital setting right now, or I need to be working in a clinic. That may not be available to you, but there may be other ways. Many of my students are doing text crisis helpline. They're getting training for that. So as long as you're getting training and you can help with that. But also one of the great ways to train for something like that is to be an RA within the university system. But you could also do some work within an office. You could be providing administrative support, for instance, in the Dean of Students office, but you will be you'll have to be answering the phone and working with people in a calm, kind manner. So there's lots of ways where you could be getting some of this experience. It is a little bit more challenging right now, but definitely come and you can talk with us. And again, anyone on this call would be glad to talk with you about opportunities, about ways that you can reach out to others. So even if they don't have a particular opportunity for you, they would be glad to probably do that mentoring and give you some guidance about ways that you can approach this, because we've all got different ideas, and we've all talked with many, many people that have made this work, and we may have some ideas that you haven't thought about yet.
Yeah, the idea of volunteering in a crisis helpline seems really relevant, since I know a lot of even the nurses I know are doing telehealth for much of their job right now, as you know, and counselors are too. So it's not a bad way to get experience if you can just find that opportunity. Okay, so yeah, so Dr. Ha chimed in that said Hokie Wellness might be a good place. They have opportunities for students to participate. Okay, so do we have any more questions? I sort of have a question, and Ms. Robinson, you already answered it because you kind of told your story of how you wound up in the job that you have. You started out as a math major, which so did I, but I didn't stick very long, and so did Dr. Lee. So can everybody say at least what was the formative experience that sort of led you to, from your undergraduate years? For example, Dr. Pursakowski, did you always know you were going to be an ER pediatric health doctor? Or
So for a lot of my life, I wanted to be a pediatrician. And I am a pediatrician. I'm a pediatrician who has extra training in, emergency and critical care. So for me, it was interesting. I watched my grandmother die when I was about 7, and I saw how important having a doctor who prayed with her was to her at a time when the doctor and she both knew there was nothing that medicine could do for her. Mm-hmm. And that was a very life-changing experience, going from thinking that doctors make everybody healthy and everybody gets better to understanding that that really doesn't happen, and there's so much importance and dignity in dying. So that's really why I chose medicine. I knew all along I would be a pediatrician. I'm the oldest with 3 younger brothers. I spent a lot of time doctoring people, even as a child. And I love that my job is a combination of taking care of very healthy people who have a traumatic event or a traumatic illness, and taking care of chronically ill children who, need to live with their illnesses. So I did go straight through from undergraduate to medical school, and then I went directly to residency and actually spent an extra year in residency as chief because I wanted to have my first baby, and then did a fellowship in pediatric emergency medicine. So it was a pretty long course. And then I came down here 12 years ago to open up our pediatric emergency department here at Carilion Roanoke Memorial Hospital. So this is my home now, and I've been here since before the medical school was created, and I'm really proud of what we have here. So it was a path that, really worked for me.
Okay, great. So Dr. Lee, I skipped you, sorry.
That's fine. We don't have to go in any particular order. You already know. So I guess I'm going to paraphrase. Like, when was my moment of realizing what I should do with my life? I'm still figuring it out. But similar to Dr. Pursakowski, okay. All right, so.
Everyone calls me Dr. P.
Dr. P, thank you, Dr. P, because my Southern drawl would not allow me to say that. So I went straight through from my bachelor's. I went from my bachelor's directly to a PhD program, went to a postdoc, so followed very much so the traditional path to go into academia. I kind of had this moment during my postdoc experience where I liked the science, I liked the research aspect, but I found myself doing a lot of mentoring and support. And that's for several reasons, but many undergraduates and graduate students were always coming to me as a postdoc and saying, what can I do to make sure that I finish this degree? What should I be doing with my PI to make sure that I'm able to meet his expectations? And I kind of became a counselor informally, and I worked with a lot of different organizations, specifically women of color, interested in research. So from that, I was like, you really are interested in outreach and really working with people. So I feel like I never met a stranger type thing. So I made the shift, came back to tech, and I never thought I was coming back. I always tell people that. Did not think I was coming back after I graduated. But I came back and did education programs and outreach. I was really into K through 12 STEM exposure, giving them those moments like I had as a kid to say math is fun, like continue to pursue it. And then from there, I realized again that student support and advocacy, I could do that at a larger, in a larger sense, working at the graduate school. So now, like I tell people, I have like 6,500 graduate students that I'm responsible for. And I can say a percentage of them do email me with different things. So I really enjoy cheering them along, making sure that they reach their goals. So I'm like, that's great. You went here, you went there. I like to get updates similar for undergraduate students, whether they choose Virginia Tech or choose graduate education somewhere else. So it's very fulfilling work. Just to meet so many different people who go on to do so many great things. So that's what caused my shift.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, Ms. Jenkins.
Well, I'm not quite, I'm not a doctor or anything. So, but I've always been in higher education since I graduated 11 years ago from college. So I've always been in higher education. And I think just being able to help somebody figure out, I was at a community college before I came to Virginia Tech. So just being able to help somebody figure out what they want to do and kind of help them along those ways. I've been at the vet school for 7 years now in various roles, and then in the admissions office for 4 years. And so I think our class that just graduated is the first class that I've been through all 4 years. And so that's always kind of a cool thing to kind of see them from being accepted to graduation. And I don't work with the students as much once they are in vet school unless they're ambassadors. But just seeing their journey is always really cool for me. And, you know, I always like, you know, working with students, and I have not met a stranger before either. So, but yeah, I just have a bachelor's degree, but, you know, have always been in higher ed, and it's just a very fulfilling role.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, for me, I grew up in the Mojave Desert, and there was nary a drop of water. And, you know, it didn't rain for 3 years when I was like 6 to 9 years old, and that was bad. And so I thought, you know what, if I do marine biology, I definitely will live near the ocean. And it actually turned out that I don't. I live in Blacksburg, Virginia, but there's a lot more water here. So, yeah, I did not know what I wanted to do when I went to college, and I thought marine biology was it, but I had no idea how to make that into a career. And so I had no intention of going to graduate school because I sort of viewed it as something that was very expensive, and you still didn't know what you were going to have as a career when you ended. And I feel like the thing that kept me coming back for more, once I discovered that there were jobs in the field of fisheries especially, is just the idea of lifelong learning and curiosity. And that was important to me. And so I would say, like, no matter what path you choose, if that is important to you, you know, all of these professions are a great option. And I do think I have I've benefited from both the veterinary and the medical profession hugely now that I'm a mom and I have several pets. I mean, I cannot thank I would especially say the pediatric emergency medicine doctors are amazing, and I probably was not ever a good fit for me, and I never had any inkling that it would, you know, it should be my path, but I have so much gratitude towards people who choose that profession. So it is a lot of work. I think all of these things are wonderful giving careers, and you get to keep exploring and asking questions and meeting interesting people. But then it involves a lot of kind of years of nose to the grindstone too. So getting those learning is hard. I always tell my students, everybody's climbing a hill. Everybody's at a different spot on the hill, but basically you're never at the top. So even I try to reveal to my trainees, like, I'm still learning every day. I'm trying to learn and keep my skills current, and you know, science is just expanding all the time. And so that's why I think, yeah, my career in research was a great fit for me. And I think I had no idea that I could be a professor. Or even just be a researcher. I viewed that as something that was really difficult and only for like geniuses. And then I realized eventually that I was good enough. Nobody was like kicking me out. So I just decided to keep going. And I will say that a career in scientific research, you often get a lot of job flexibility that you do not get in something like the vets. I've been at the vet in the middle of the night many times. And so, so those are things to weigh. Those are like practical considerations to just, if having a family is important, it's, you know, the flexibility. Obviously you can do it in medicine, or veterinary medicine as well. But I get the feeling that it can be very tough. So, but not impossible. I don't see many more questions from our audience. Are we wrapping up? Dr. Lee, you didn't actually give me a time limit. Do we want to have parting thoughts from each one of our panelists? And Dr. Lee, you can go first. Any words of wisdom to send us home with? Not that we're already at home.
My echo back there. So that was advice from a 3-year-old. Go play with your old grandma. I don't know what that means. But I think advice is it's okay to have a plan. The plan will change. Make sure you take time to constantly reevaluate that plan. I encourage people to do it each semester because my goal clearly when I was in high school is much different than what my goals look like today. So make sure it's something that you can kind of measure, that's attainable, and kind of smaller goals as well. Sometimes it's hard to see the big picture sometimes. So be proud of yourself for those minor accomplishments as it leads towards a larger goal that you may have.
Okay, Dr. P.
I totally agree with Dr. Lee. That's great advice. And work to find your passion. Those of you who are Virginia Tech students, you've already taken a huge step to be at an institution where you get to explore so many different things. Make use of that so that you can find what really makes you tick. And then, as I said, study to learn it forever.
Okay, Ms. Jenkins, parting wisdom.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo that. You know, I get a lot of questions about, you know, what's going to make me look best on the application, and don't focus on that. Focus on the passion and focus on, obviously you need things to make you look well, do well on the application, but you need to also do things that you enjoy. That's one reason why we don't look at majors, because if you're passionate about history, major in history, because you'll get those prerequisites and you'll learn all the things you need to learn to be successful. And so don't forget to have fun while you're in college too. I mean, not too much fun where you get in trouble, but you know, definitely enjoy the experience while you're in college, because you know it's a once in a lifetime thing. But yeah, just find those things that you enjoy doing, and you know, still do well academically, but have fun.
Yeah, so echo all of that. And I think the thing that I see probably the most with students is you feel like you're hanging out with everybody who already knows their destination and their direction, and you're the only one who doesn't. And so I'm just here to tell you that's not the case, because everybody's nodding. We hear this all the time. So they don't have it any more figured out than you do. They're just saying something, and then that way they feel comfortable with it and they're done. So basically, you don't need to know your destination, or you can just say, I'm going to be a health professional in the future, or I'm going to do something with a graduate education, and I'm going to explore what that looks like. Instead of saying you have a particular destination, maybe what you start saying is, I'm just exploring over this next year, and I'm going to explore a variety of healthcare fields, or I'm going to explore a variety of areas of research. So any of those kinds of things, exploring is wonderful. You'll find a lot of different people along the way to talk with. And I think that you can see that many of us, Dr. Pursakowski had an idea. She certainly wanted to be a pediatrician, and even that took a turn. And she's working in emergency medicine, and now doing this academic piece as well. So we're all ending up in different places, kind of, than even what we had imagined. The other thing I hear in common with a lot of people here on the call, as well as what I hear with students, is it is about that mentor. I majored in math. I was not good at math. I majored in math because I had a wonderful mentor, and I honestly couldn't imagine spending less time learning from her. And so I was like, well, the best way to do that is to show up in her classroom, because otherwise I don't get to learn from her. So go do those things. I knew I was excited to learn math. I was really clear I was not good at it. She even told me so, but it did not deter me in the least. And she had me for 4 years, and we grew to really enjoy each other's company. And she was quite a wonderful guide for me. So anything like that, go do the things that you get excited about. You'll have to do enough of things that are required but look for those areas that get you energized. You may not know why it energizes you, but try to explore that and see if you can figure it out and get some pointers along the way. But definitely build those relationships with people, because I think even as we go more virtually, the building of relationships is not going to become less important. It's actually going to become more important. And I've seen that as we've gone to a virtual environment as well. So anyway, so good luck with that. And we're always glad to talk with you, as I'm sure anyone here on this call is.
Yes, thank you everyone so much. That was fun.
Can I just chime in? I
Absolutely,
just wanted to actually thank everybody. My name is Dr. Nina Ha, and I'm the director of the Asian Cultural Engagement Center. And we'll actually be putting this webinar on our YouTube channel, the ACE YouTube channel. So just wanted to thank you all for being here and for sharing your wisdom to all of my students and people all over. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.